Many relics of the time of the dragon cult are scattered across the beautiful land of Kaizal, Skyrim, yet most of the history of Dovahzul was erased and forgotten. Every ancient Nordic ruin we explore tells a story with each stone carving, each ruined book, a tale shared in hushed and unintelligible whispers. It matters not if we are in Bleak Falls Barrow or Bromjuna, also known as Labyrinthian, if we face Dovahzul, a dragon priest or a Draugr death lord. All Atmoran temples and their elusive inhabitants we uncover during our travels are elements of a period long forgotten. Perhaps one of the most enigmatic fragments which are of this time are the word walls, also known as walls of power, dispersed all over Kaizal's landscape and various tombs interior. Drem Yol Lok, Zu'u, and welcome to my study in my home leaf rest in Riverwood, Skyrim. Here today we're going to turn our attention to the word walls, stone cairns erected in numerous locations across the land, which allow us, Dovahzul, the Dragonborn, to learn words of power etched into their rocks. There is not much that is explicitly known of them, aside from their appearance and function. While we are able to translate the commemorations and at times wisdom carved into Nistketsegolle, their stones, we are incapable of fully discerning the raw power they emit through an enigmatic chant as we close in on them. Even the way they look and the Dovahzul written on them is never definitively explained to us by history, by the greybeards, or even by our dragon friends. Thus, here today we will delve deeply into all that is known of these considerably mysterious stone structures, into their time of origin, purpose, and appearance. Afterwards, we shall offer two theories behind their most enigmatic attribute: the unbridled power and magic they emit, accompanied by a thunderous sound. Without further ado, let us focus on the inked pieces of parchment where I have documented my research. Let us begin. Mora now Minda. Firstly, it is important to mention that the word walls can only be found in Skyrim and Solstheim, which was a territory of Kaizal until the 16th year of the 4th era, when it was generously given to the Dunmer people by an unknown High King after the eruption of Red Mountain in year 5 of the 4th era. Unique walls of power can also be uncovered in Hermes Mora's realm of oblivion, Apocrypha, which is not difficult to explain. For one, Mirak, the first Dragonborn and former head priest of the dragon cult, is a servant to the Lord of Secrets and a virtual prisoner in his plane of oblivion. Besides, Mora, as the Skal of Solstheim called him, is the Daedric Prince of Knowledge, and more specifically forbidden knowledge, among other aught. Even if the renegade Sonak was not in the sinister painting of sickly greens and slimy blacks, had Mora wished to obtain the lore of these stone structures, he would have found a way to do so. Not to mention that this particular Daedric prince has always expressed interest in Dovahje Dovahkinne, dragons and dragonborn, and possessed enough knowledge of the Thu'um to indirectly teach Mirak and later on us shouts. But I digress. Let us return to the realm of Mundus. It is little wonder the word walls are dotted all over the landscape and interior of Nordic tombs, given the dragon cult's rule over the country during the Meretic era. Considering the ancient Nords brought their worship of animal gods, and especially of Dove, from Atmora, we could assume that if we were to visit the Is Dunag, ice-covered continent, we would come across similar stone cairns etched with memorials and/or wisdom in Dovahzul, and emitting power through adrenaline-rising chants. While we can regrettably not set foot on the frozen shores of the mysterious north, I'm inclined to believe there are word walls there as well, due to the evidence presented previously. There is one structure which could have been raised after the Dragon War, the inscription of which is radiant, and I will explain once we get to the purpose of these stone cairns, for this feature is not unique to it. For me, it appeared an Arquint point. I find this one to be ambiguous. It could have been erected during or after the Dragon War or long before it, and its writing's translation is the following. Here lies the body of Swallow, who possessed strength to kill a dragon, but not the stamina to kill many. The etched text can be taken at face value. That Swallow was an Mulken Dove, a strong warrior who did kill one dragon but fell to other Dovahzul due to exhaustion. In this case, we could assume the structure was built during or after the Dragon War by the Tongues or other mortals who were trained to wield the Thu'um. This would explain the choice for commemoration and the language it was written in. There is also the possibility that this Swallow individual rebelled against his dragon overlords and attempted to overthrow them seemingly by himself. It would be in line with the earthen meaning of his name, which is derived from the Greek svolos and means rude, simple, clumsy, sluggish, or stupid. An inside joke among the developers, maybe? And since the rest of his family did not attempt to diminish Dovahzul's authority, they were unharmed and erected this word wall in his memory. It is also possible that Swallow was battling against dragons renegade from the main branch of the cult. We are aware it had separate sects due to the scarce knowledge we can uncover on Kavozine, his followers, and the sacrificial dagger named after him, a topic we have already discussed in length in the past. Thus, the probability of Dove who challenged the established authority existing is quite high. But I got carried away. I still like to think he was foolish enough to try and overthrow Dove on his own, given the earthen meaning of his name. Nothing written on the rest of the walls of power indicates they were erected during or after the Dragon War. Now let us speak of what the word wall's purpose is and give several examples. The biggest role they play from both story and gameplay standpoint is that of teaching us, the Dragonborn, words of power, which we can utilize after applying the knowledge contained in a Dovahzul, a dragon soul, to them. Each shout has specific walls of power connected to it, aside from the one at sheer point, which is always the same, for it is the only one that shows us all three. Nonetheless, the runes carved into the cairns are not set in stone, pun intended. The inscriptions change depending on which words of a certain shout we already know. For instance, the dragon layer bone-strewn crest is meant to teach the Dova Kinan Rotmulaagge, a word of power from the frost-bred shout. If we do not know Fo, the first one, we will see the following text. All praise Bart Lunerio, whose golden music became frost here in the night. Nonetheless, if we have already learned frost from one of the other locations connected to this particular shout, and namely Folgunthur and Skyborn Altar, the inscription on the word wall in bone-strewn crest will adapt to teach us the second Rotmulaagge, Kra, which translates to cold, and the runes will say this instead. Here lies the beautiful Khajiit Anorasa, whose warmth cannot be extinguished even by cold death. Therefore, while all the texts etched into the rocks of the word walls can be seen in-game, they switch places depending on which Rotmulaagge we already know. Given the translations we looked at thus far, you have definitely already uncovered the other purpose of these walls, to commemorate individuals. I will not translate all 76 inscriptions that I read for the sake of this investigation, but I will show 3 more that stood out to me. Nonetheless, if you are interested in unveiling what is written on each of them, do look up Master Nelot's work, which he dedicated to not only going over the texts carved in each structure, but the known lore behind some of them. You will find his research below. Nu mora now fal sic vunde. Now let us focus on the word walls whose contents I will share. Here is what one of them connected to the animal allegiance shout says. These runes can spawn in Ancient's Ascent, Angerwund, or Isgrimor's tomb, or rather the hill located right above the temple. This stone commemorates the horse Sarvira, the most courageous animal ever to charge the snowy battlefields and give his life for his lord. And now we will travel to Solstheim to Valok the jailer's tomb. Here is what is written on one of the three cairns there, all erected in the benevolent dragon priest's name. Noble Nord, forever remember the mighty guardian whose great courage inspired both men and dragon. And one of the inscriptions for the dismay shout, which can appear in Dead Crone Rock, Lost Tongue Overlook, or Shalidor's Maze. Noble Nord, remember these words of the Hoar Father. Fear not the spectre of death, for he is the herald of glory and your guide to great Sovngarde. Aside from being erected in memory of individuals, humanoid and animal alike, the word walls also share the wisdom of the Hoar Father. There are 9 structures in total that reference this philosophical figure who could have been a living, breathing being, a god, or simply a concept, and Fasni, fear not, we will give this Hoar Father the attention he deserves in a future research. There is one word wall that is unique compared to the rest, the one we find in the Forgotten Vale. It has no memorial or wisdom carved into its stone, but only one Rotmulaagge, word of power, and more specifically one from the Drain Vitality Shout. Its appearance is also different to the rest of the structures we come across in Skyrim. I assume that the Rotmulaagge was shouted or carved into the stone by one of the enigmatic twin dragons we find there, Voslagum and Naslagum, or both of them. As to why, this is another question entirely. I do plan to turn my attention to these Dovahzul in the future nonetheless. Some also speculate that the Falmer, not the abominations we come across on our travels during the Fourth Era, but the Snow Elves before Ysgramor's conquest, raised this word wall. This would imply some of this race of Mer were, in the very least, familiar with Dovahzul, and given the mysterious twin dragon's presence there, it is possible. But I digress. Given the carvings of ancient Nordic symbols on each word wall we come across, aside from the one in the Forgotten Vale, it is safe to assume that the stone cairns were erected by Atmorans to commemorate heroes and loved ones, as well as share the Hoar Father's wisdom with fellow, and I quote, noble Nords. Due to the dragon cult's rule at the time, it is natural that those subjects learned Dovahzul out of respect and or fear of their Thu'um overlords and used it to immortalize the memory of those they had lost or to spread the sagacity of the Hoar Father. Hela Thriceverse, the author of the book Dragon Language, Myth No More, comes to the same conclusion. She also theorizes alongside Braan bovitaan and I myself that the Walls of Power's locations are either the places where the commemorated perished or ones who were significant to them before their deaths, for there is no pattern in the stone structure's positions. Now let us turn our attention to their appearance. As we travel across the land, we will notice that the word walls are all identical, save for the one in the Forgotten Vale, and as mentioned before, each is adorned with Atmoran symbols, which we see in every ancient Nordic ruin we explore. After looking at the stunning concept art of the late Adam Adamovich, I and many others are led to believe that these monuments would have had varying appearances. I have no doubt that some would have still maintained the look we witnessed during our adventures in Skyrim, but they would have been much more diverse. It was likely because of time limitations and for the comfort of the developers that the Walls of Power were made to resemble one another. I shall now remain silent, both to pay respects to Mr. Adamovich, who was taken from us too soon, and so that you can marvel at the gorgeous concept art showing us what could have been. Finally, we shall talk of what little is confirmed of the power they emit. Every time we are near one of these considerably mysterious stone cairns, we will hear this adrenaline rising chant. After listening to it closely, I and many others have come to the conclusion that the words are in Dovahzul. Nonetheless, what we hear is gibberish in the dragon tongue, random words put together for effect as opposed to coherent sentences. And speaking of words, one or three of them, in the case of the Wall of Power at sheer point, will be highlighted by orange, blue, and purple hues, resembling the colors of a dragon's soul as it flies out of a Dova's body. And as the Dova kin, we have an inborn affinity for Dovahzul, which allows us to learn Rotmulaagge with ease, and this is exactly what occurs as we get close enough. Nonetheless, possessing the gift of grasping the superficial meanings of the words does not give us the knowledge required to wield them. This is why we need an Dovahzul, a dragon soul, to unlock the ability to utilize them, as we well know. Something intriguing to note is that the power of the word walls is not perceived only by the Dova kin and the Greybeards, who will mark a location on our map after catching, according to Arngir, whispers of certain words.
We have felt the whisper of a word. Give me your map and I will show you where its echo can be found.
Everyone can sense or hear the chant, from an experienced master of the way of the voice to an ordinary traveler. The enigmatic letters from a friend we can receive after displaying the power of our Thu'um anywhere in Kayazal describe the stone structures in their final line, which is always the same. You should turn your attention to random location. I understand it holds a mysterious source of power that can only be unlocked by the Dragonborn. We know said mysterious source of power is always a word wall. As for the letters from a friend, this topic has been covered by quite a few researchers in the past, thus I shall not delve too deeply into them, especially not now since they are not our focus. We return to Hela Thriceverst's work. Here is an excerpt from her book Dragon Language Myth No More, which is relevant to our current investigation. For as I observed the walls I found, I noticed something peculiar about some of the words. It was as if they pulsed with a kind of power, an unknown energy that, if unlocked, might be harnessed by the reader. That sounds like nonsense, I know, but if you had stood by these walls, seen their blackness, felt their power, you would understand that of which I speak. As evidenced, the force that the word walls emit can be sensed and more than likely heard by everyone in close proximity to them. But why do they exude such power? What is its source? There are two theories which offer possible answers to this question, and one of them, I believe, is extremely plausible. The first speculation is that the word walls are charged with the souls of blood sacrifices made in Alduin's name, and this, combined with the usage of Dovahzul, which is in itself magically charged, results in such raw power. We know that the dragon priests who ruled in the name of their Dovahzul demanded tributes and set laws and codes of living that kept peace between dragons and men. In the words of Torhal Bjorek, they were considered benevolent and just while in Atmora, but over time turned tyrannical in Skyrim. It is not far-fetched to assume that some of the tributes involved sacrifices, as evidenced by Kavozine's sect, which we spoke of previously. Plus, there is concept art of, as the community refers to them, elf crushers, where Falmer were leveled to the ground or, more appropriately, beneathed by the ancient Nords after they occupied Skyrim. I am uncertain if Alduin himself would personally require sacrifices in his name, given his unmatched power, but Palok, arrogance could have certainly played a part here. As we are aware, souls trapped in eponymous gems can be used to enchant and charge magical objects, alongside the star energy-based Varla stones. and while this theory is technically possible, I find it to be rather unlikely. The bigger counterargument to it are the writings on the walls themselves. They are either wisdom of the Horefather or commemorations of individuals, often built by loved ones of the deceased. Why in the name of Saint Nerevar would they slay somebody and Gron, bind his or her soul to the memorial of an ally, friend, lover, or family member, let alone the seal of the commemorated? While Dove often perch atop these word walls during the Fourth Era, they were likely not raised for the dragon's sake. There is nothing else to be said about this speculation, so let us move on to the next and final one, and in my opinion the theory that is plausible enough to be considered Falvaza, the truth, and thus. The word walls emit such raw, unbridled power due to the magical nature of Dovahzul itself. As I explained during my research regarding Sissel, Dove are arcane in their very essence, due to their status as lesser Adric beings. Nist Zul, their voice and by extension the Thu'um, is an extremely powerful form of magic. Furthermore, sound is exceptionally mighty in the world of Nirn, especially for those well versed in tonal architecture. This intriguing skill, for which the Dwemer were renowned, is the ability to manipulate vibrations to reshape reality. The Deep Elves used tonal architecture in shaping and building their magnificent cities and apparatuses, as well as in medicine and combat. This skill could be utilized to hypnotize and to control one's mind. During my research on Volthuriol and his curious location, I argued that the Thu'um is an example of entirely natural tonal architecture, as opposed to only being comparable to it, as official sources claim. I used the strange glowing orb in Kagren Zel as an example, the one that circles the Dova Kin as if examining us for something before the ground beneath us opens and we fall freely into a massive cavern. I agreed with the popular speculation that we were not swiftly dealt with like the unfortunate bandits lying lifeless at our feet because the orb, a tool of tonal architecture, determined we possessed this skill due to our status as the Dragonborn. Perhaps this enigmatic device concluded we were a Dwemer, and thus we were allowed to go unscathed. Furthermore, in the Elder Scrolls castles there are enemies labeled as tonal dragons. Keeping this in mind, let us return to our theory. We have established that Dovahzul is a magically charged language, and we even see examples of Rotmulaagge being shouted, or in this case whispered, into the floor by the Greybeards and on a word wall by Parturnax, and he actually does shout it into the wall. And both the inhabitants of High Hrothgar and their leader have intimate knowledge of the Thu'um, which they gift us with. Even carved by mortals, some of whom likely did not possess the ability to shout, the usage of Dovahzul in itself charges the walls. Furthermore, in the Letters from a Friend, the elusive author or authors, depending on which theory one subscribes to, state that the power he, she, or they speak of can only be unlocked by the Dragonborn. It is also noteworthy that many Dovahki perch atop these word walls during the Fourth Era or remain in close proximity to them, making these locations their lairs. The knowledge and magical energy they discharge must be attractive to Dove. Since they already know the shouts, which can be learned from the carvings in the stones, they do not absorb their power as we do, although it is possible that they meditate on them similarly to Parthurnax, which would strengthen their Thu'um. This speculation must be taken with a grain of salt, for there is no evidence of other Dovahki aside from their former lieutenant who engage in meditation. Nonetheless, its purpose in this case would be to become more powerful as opposed to suppress their innate desire to rel, to dominate, and given their astounding intelligence and arcane affinity, it is something they could do. There is another possible explanation as to why they can be found atop or near the walls of power situated out in the open, to prevent the Dova Kin from learning Rotmulaagge and becoming more formidable and more of a danger to their kind. In the unofficial Elder Scrolls pages, Dovar described us, and I quote, guarding the word walls. Perhaps Alduin gave them the order to prevent us from learning the words of power. This is quite logical of him to do, especially after we successfully vanquished Saloknir minutes after he resurrected him. To summarize, the speculation that Dovahzul runes etched into the stone structures emit such power due to the magically charged language they are written in is most plausible. And especially if we consider Dovakinne, dragonkind and dragonborn, to be inborn masters of tonal architecture. And with this, our research comes to an end. The word walls are a vital part of our stories as Dovakinne. Without them, we would be unable to nurture Dovahzul, the dragon soul within us, and expand our arsenal of shouts and knowledge of the beautiful Zu'u language of dragonkind. It was an utmost honor to put this extensive research on them together and answer questions I myself have had for many a time, and I do hope to have helped you learn something new of this integral part of the land we all know and love. If you possess any lore on the topic that I may have failed to share, please do not hesitate to Onikiv enlighten me. I always adore exchanging thoughts and knowledge with you, Difadonne. Arkun Slat Kogan, thank you all for your support, as always. I look forward to having you in my study again, but until then, Lok Thu'um. Al Kron, may you conquer, Difadonne.